What I want to do is we're going to return to CorpWide settings, okay? We're going to return to the CorpWide settings. We're just going to look over it briefly, and then we're going to start doing some shopping cart stuff, okay? I want you guys to start playing and actually getting in there, and then once you play, okay, cool, I feel like I'm relatively comfortable, then we'll dip in a little deeper. But I kind of want you guys to be like, yay, it's me, I'm playing, okay? So, here's how we're all going to get back to CorpWide settings, just so even if you're there, I'd like you to leave it so you can come back with us. From the interactive map, we're going to click on settings. From the settings page, we're going to click on the top right-hand corner. It says edit CorpWide settings and defaults. However, I see that the word C-W is now in there. Okay?
Ready.
Somebody was busy.
Ready.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's have you guys scroll down real quick. We're just going to kind of briefly talk about this. Steve does have a couple of YouTube videos that kind of talk about this. What it is they're numbered along the left-hand side. Please don't focus on the number. It's a great way to say, if somebody happens to ask you, hey, where do I go to change that or whatever, you can quickly look, oh, that's number 34. But guess what? In 2 weeks, it may not be number 34. So please don't worry about the numbers is what I'm trying to say, because we're going to add, subtract, and kind of keep going and going and going where needed. So we can change the names of it. We can do the locations. I'm scrolling down, and I'm just going to go relatively quick, and I'm hoping to spend less than 5 minutes on this, and then we're going to bail out. This page warrants way more than 5 minutes. However, we're going to be bouncing back and forth to it, okay? We have the corporation. 3 and 4 are your locations. 5 and 6, 7, 8, your salesperson, your customer. You have a number of, like this number 10, this is very common for different people. Like the default name is a customer tax ID, but we have some people who are like, hey, I have certain card numbers, I have certain license numbers, I have certain VIP membership things. So they'll change it, VIP membership. And then when they go to add a new customer, the field says, hey, what's your VIP membership? No. Oh yeah, it's 81777. That's kind of an important one. A lot of people use that. The default is customer tax ID, but it can be changed to anything. Okay? Coming down, you have a bunch of dates that are available for customers. And you can change these. These are just our default. We have start, end, and then kind of like a period, if you will, like an expiration period. When did you start, when are you ending? It's different than when I got the customer and when I left the customer. It's like, what is your active stage? Like say for a membership type thing. Or say I have a membership at the gym and I want to go there. You can have the customer, and they can exist for years and years and years, but what's their active membership and when are they expiring? This is like a small little window. You can change it to whatever you want. Okay? So I'm down into about the 15 range. There's a little thing you can put for the customer terms. If you wanted to, you can change it to net 30 or cash only or whatever. It's just a default. 16, there's the thing called the customer queue. A customer queue is who's next. Okay? So we have some companies who basically the process is this. They come into the company, say they show an ID number or something like this, and they're like, oh, perfect, I'll put you in line. They already check the information, make sure the person's a valid member, whatever's going on, and then they're set in the queue. And then the person who's servicing this is watching this queue. Who's next? Who's next? How long have they been waiting? It's a who's waiting. If you're doing a service and you go for a ticket, we'll be with you in just a second. And then somebody said, they can add a queue. Hey, it's the redhead. You know, like you can whatever you wanted to do, you can add it into your queue, and then when the person pulls it up, they can service that, and it links directly to the cart or elements of time or whatever, right from the queue. By default, it's actually not turned on. Okay, so right here, it's like show use the queue. If you turned it to off, you could turn the whole thing off if you wanted to. Okay, the customer invoice name. This is the primary one that you assign a customer to. This is the basic invoice type. So for instance, if I have, say I'm doing patients or say I'm doing students, hey, this is my student invoice. This is my patient invoice. You would attach that name to whatever you wanted to. It could be, hey, this is my fulfilled order. Maybe that's what you wanted to call it. Or maybe this is my, whatever. This, you get to name it. It has a shortcut. 19 and 20 right now are for a thing called transition invoices. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Basically, it's more of like a layaway or a work in progress type thing. So you still want to attach it to a customer, but it has a flex period in a way where it's kind of like, I'm starting to be real, but I'm not fully real yet. And often this happens with, like, say a huge purchase. For instance, a house, okay? Say somebody's buying a modular home, which is a big ticket item, and maybe they put 5,000 down, and they put another 5,000 down. Like, so basically what we do is we create this invoice, and it has the total dollar amount, and then they start making payments toward it. But we haven't really delivered the house, we haven't done anything yet, and so whatever the option might be, it might be way simpler, a simple layaway, or a job that you're building up, okay? You could technically start a transitional invoice, and then you can kind of, it sits in this kind of quasi state, like, I'm past a quote, I'm really real, but I'm not really real, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to show up in your receivables, and I'm not going to show up in your taxes and stuff like that. And so basically it's like, what in accounting words, what happens is we take that, and instead of going to the normal income statement like a normal invoice does, we flip it over to the balance sheet. We just do a different mapping on it, okay? But it has a special window where it's either layaway or in progress. Okay, the next pieces are tons and tons of stuff for invoices. There are probably 20 plus settings that you can tweak your invoices out. Signatures, disclaimers, all this kind of stuff. So as we pop down through, we're just going to start roughly on the, you can name your limited format. Let's start on 21. That's kind of like just a little one that has, this could be a shipping list or something like that. Say you wanted to provide an invoice, but you didn't want prices. You just wanted quantities and values with a little checkbox next to it. We call it the limited format. You could change it to shipping. You could change it to checklist. You could change it whatever, okay? 22 is a thank you line that you can put at the bottom of your invoices. You have a number of different line items like signatures. If you need multiple signatures, you just say yes or no, click or hide. Coming down into 25, 26, and 27, you have extra verbiage that you can put on there. These are little things like, hey, no returns. This is basically, it's going to be on every invoice, something that you wanted. Hey, we do allow returns, but we require X number restocking fee or something like that. The one that's big is 28. If you need a ton of length, say you're really technical and you're like, we promise that this product could kill you, or whatever your thing is, this is where you put a disclaimer. And the cool thing about the disclaimer is you can actually say, do you want it to automatically attach, or do you want it just to be available, meaning like almost a standalone disclaimer. So say you have a nice invoice that's on a page or whatever your layout is, and then you can print out a different one that's your legal verbiage, or you can run it in line if you want. So that's the disclaimer part of it. Okay, the default printable invoice. On number 29, this is after you're done with the shopping cart. When you say create invoice, so basically the shopping cart is where we go to create these things. When we finally get done and we say, I'm going to take it out of that session memory and actually commit it to the database, what style of invoice do you want it to show? We have 3 basic styles we can push you right off to. One is called the printable invoice with nav, which means with navigation. Another one is a printer-friendly one, and another one is the small 3-inch format that you commonly get from like a receipt-type printer. Okay, so you basically set up your basic things here. Number 30, the current name of it is called customer PO number. I'm not planning on going through every single one of these and talking about it, but I just wanted to kind of tell you what these things are. We call it PO number, but technically you can name it whatever you would like. Do I need a tracking number? Do I need a requisition number? Do I need it's a special call out. This particular field, by default, it's turned off. If you turn it on, what ends up happening is that once you're in the cart mode, you can add it, and as soon as you do, it puts it on the tippy top of that invoice. Like even before the normal invoice number, it's almost there. Like say you serve out a company and they had given you a requisition number or something like that, it's a way to provide back to them some sort of a thing. You could also go in there and kind of be like, hey, this is a special, it's a special field, and you get to name it, and then you get to search it later on too, but it's turned off by default. Okay, going down to the next one, we have some checkout settings. This little box at the top says enable quick cash checkout. Some people that are doing more of a cash register type thing, what it does is if that is not checked, it'll pull in the whole value of the deal. Okay? If it is if it's not, long story short, if you click the box, the thing is blank, it's open. It's kind of like, how much do you want to pay type thing. And then it just, I can see my mom's looking at me and going, what the heck are you talking about?
Okay, so let me see. If what I'm hearing you say is that instead of giving out the line items, it just tells me the amount, it gives me the amount. Is
Okay,
that
so
it?
the checkout process has a number of little features on it, okay? And this little box will depend on if the first value is either preloaded or empty, meaning like, hey, I might have a variable payment coming in, or no, I always get the full amount. That little checkbox either preloads or loads that little piece, okay? And we haven't even done invoices yet, so don't even freak out, okay? It's basically just a setting to how you can check out in the checkout process. You can determine up to how many checkouts. Like some people, say you have a particular company and they're like, man, every single person comes in and they're paying part cash, part check, part Visa, part, okay, you can determine how many that you want to accept in the checkout process. The invoice is technically unlimited. You could have payments for months after months after months after months after months, okay? But it's how many do you want in your checkout process? Just kind of some of those little things. And then do you want us to help you like calculate your change due and some of that, those type of things. Payment, credit card payment methods. All this is it basically says when you're checking out, are you going to be manually entering the credit cards or are you using Swiper? And it kind of helps us know that. Auto calc. This basically is dealing with how much change is due. Like some people don't want the change actually due to be calculated. They're like, no, 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 no. I want to record this in a different way. So it's just a setting. Okay, this next one, number 34, this one actually deals within the cart as you're searching thing. This is actually fairly new. I would say probably in the last couple months. Well, basically what we have is inside the shopping cart, and I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because you guys are like, man, I haven't even seen the shopping cart. There's a default search page. As soon as you get into the cart, it's like, what do you want to search? By default, it's assuming that you want to searching the parts section. The parts section is actually a CorpWide setting. Okay, we run it through a parts department, but it could be widgets or whatever. This little piece right here says, what do you like to search? By default, it's just parts. But if you happen to have a complicated system and you're like, I'm actually searching flex grids, I'm searching recipes, I'm searching barcodes, I'm searching, it's just options that are additional search things that you can choose from, okay? Once again, if I'm not explaining it correctly, go in there. Here's another awesome way that you can do this. If you guys are like, whoa, what does that do? And when you're in your own little corporation, I would spend some time. I'm going to change this little setting right here, okay? What does this do? And then you go to the cart page. Oh, interesting. And then you go back and you change it again. Oh, now I see what it's doing. Okay, I want this and this. Like, it'll help you make up your mind rather than like, oh, what is this? Go experiment. Go experiment. You're not going to hurt it. And if you don't like it, come back and turn it off. It's a piece of cake, all right? So coming down, there's some barcode options, and just kind of goes into some details about like how you want certain things. This barcode quick cart, barcodes are not required to use Adilas at all. You don't have to use them at all. I can sell widgets as fast as anybody who has barcodes in some ways, but it depends on your scenario. Okay, if you like to look zip and it automatically adds it to the cart, you're going to want to come here. If you want to go beep and say you're still scanning a barcode, but you want it to do something else, you might not want to click that thing, okay? And it totally depends on what you do, but there are a lot of barcode options. It is not required, but a very handy feature. Okay, coming down, you have settings for elements of time. What's your default time block? Is it 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour? Like you can set up these different blocks of time. What do you like to see when you first land on the page? All the details, just the calendar view, just the grouped view, just the time slot view, like tons and tons of options. We don't even have time to really go into it right now, okay? Elements of Time has that many settings just for it, all by itself, okay? These next ones are kind of your search types. Your customers are your your customers are your outgoing piece, and your vendors are your incoming, where you're getting your products from, okay? These search ones, ideally, I would leave it at any name, but if you don't ever deal with businesses and you just deal with individuals who have a first and a last name, it depends on how you like to run your business. Do you call everybody like, hey, John, how are you doing? But you have no clue their last name? You might want to flip this thing to a first name search, okay? If it's on any, it'll search business, last, or first. If you switch it and you actually changed it to one of the other ones, you can technically say, hey, I call everybody by their last name. You come in here, this is more, thank you very much. Let me see how I can help you. And you'd go to the thing and you just type more, like this, and then it would pull up, here's my mores that were returned. Oh, this is you. There's so many different options, okay? If you leave it on the any, another thing that's kind of cool is if you actually use a phone number or an email address, you could actually do like that. Ma'am, can I get part of your phone number? What's the last four of your phone number? Search. Oh, what's your, you know, like, all of a sudden I only have 3 letters, or it comes back, oh, is that, oh, Mrs. Moore. Like, there's different ways around the thing. The search capability is amazing, but I would leave it on any as a personal preference unless you have a specific reason to move it to last name or first name. Okay, the whole next section, 39 through a lot, deals with parts and widgets, okay? What do you want to call it? What are they doing? So if I sold accessories, or is it items? Is it products? Is it SKUs? Does that kind of make sense? Just what the different things are? We're going to leave it at CW parts right now, just so that we can see that CW. Anytime you see that CW, what does that stand for again? Just for training.
CorpWide.
CorpWide, meaning CorpWide settings. CorpWide means the corporation is going to cascade out. This is not a personal setting. This is CorpWide, okay? So let's go ahead and come on down. There's a ton that you can do for part numbers. Number 44, you can actually say, hey, do we want to lock this into specific location, specific inventory, or do we want it a little loosey-goosey where it's like, okay, if I have it, I can sell it even if it's not specifically in my location. It's just how rigid things are actually happening, okay? Default tax category, are you mostly a wholesaler or are you a retail person? Then you have to charge tax. If you're resale, you just want to flip that thing to resale or whatever, and then automatically when you add a new part number, it assigns that tax category to it. You can change the tax category on the fly. Say for instance, most of your stuff is taxable. I'd set it as taxable, and then when you actually go to checkout, say you have somebody who's like a government or some sort of non-tax, like tax exempt, you could just flip that inside the cart, and then it'll say, okay, cool, I'm going to run it this way. But this is the default. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
What would you say the independent contractors out there are going to be? You guys are wholesaling to them a product, but they're then selling to a customer. Is there any tax liability for the independent contractor out there? Or, I mean, as labor will not, but the actual product that they say is a setup.
Okay, so what this particular thing is right here that we're talking about, this is a corp-wide setting. In general, what are your items? Oh, I tax most of my stuff. When you actually get to the physical item itself, each little item has a little teeny switch that you can do. This is just the default so that you don't have to choose, man, I had to choose taxable again. Man, I had to choose taxable again. Like, that's all it is. It's just a default setting. If labor is not taxed for your particular industry, piece of cake, piece of cake. The whole system, the way it works, is each little line item tracks its own tax category. So technically, if you wanted, you could you could mix and match.
If I'm in a church one day and I'm somewhere else where I might need to tax.
Yeah. Your locations hold your tax settings, okay? If you look on your map, the very, very bottom part of the map says location. Guess what supports the whole? You have to have some sort of location. And a location, sometimes you're like, well, I actually don't have a location. I'm kind of just virtual. Well, that's your location. Your virtual area is your location, okay? Don't be so locked into being like, what's my brick and mortar? It's not necessarily that. Your location can technically even almost be departments or sub-pieces of your little thing if you wanted to separate it out like that, okay? Location is just a word that we use to kind of like help contain it a little bit. Okay, let's go down just a little bit more. Number 48 deals with the Dui Decimal System, okay? The default is 2 because that's standard, but it goes clear out to 5 if you wanted to tweak it out and you're actually cutting pennies in half at that point, or quantities in half, like micro type stuff, and the whole system will flex according to what it's needed to do. And so if you're selling ounces and millimeters and micros and teeny stuff, you're going to want to have Dui Decimal System. We just call it that for fun. So, okay, let's scroll down a little bit more. You can put a default markup. we put in 1.85 as a default, but say your particular industry is like, hey, we're all 2.25 or 2.5 or 7 or whatever your particular mark. This is just default. Yeah, 35, that's huge. Okay, the next ones are kind of some show hide things. Do you use units of measurement? And that's like this: inches, feet, cups, boxes. Those are units of measurement, okay? How do you sell this? Is it an each? Is it a liter? Is it a... And there's a ton of different options. If you use units of measurement, the cool thing is we have a bunch that are standard. They're just things that you've already heard about, okay? But if you happen to say, hey, I sell a gaggle, or I sell a peck, or I sell a wahoozle, you know, I don't even know what a wahoozle is, but like basically we allow you to add it. So you can basically say, hey, for one wahoozle, it's X number of dollars. And so you can customize your units of measurement. Okay. So the rest of them are show hide bin numbers, line numbers on invoices, deposits, POs, expense receipts. Let's go to 57 for just a quick second. Once again, these numbers, please don't quote us on these numbers. I guarantee you they're going to change, okay? These are your PO types that you get to name. There are two other PO types that are not included right here. One of them is called an update PO, and the other one is called a build PO. But right here, as far as what they basically do, you can actually go in and tweak these a little bit. There's some recalc on sales tax and payroll settings. If you get to 60, 60 has a ton all by itself. This is called special line items, okay? So by default, yesterday we set up a new corporation, and we've already had a couple of users. Did you know you already get these default items? They're basically part numbers that are set up as kind of like unlimited. You automatically get them. If you don't like them and you're like, I'm never going to use trade-in, I'm never going to use lien, you have to realize we started kind of from the dealership kind of industry. You just turn them off right here. So instead of show use, you just say nope, 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 and you can kill some. You can also go in and say, hey, what's your default tax category? What's going on with payroll? What's going on with the roll call handling? Where's it going to show up?
So when you say no, you and here it means hide.
Yes, correct. So show use, or like say for instance, I wanted to do one here. For instance, trade in. Like, I don't know how to do that. Hide. And then once we do it, when it actually pulls up the list that we have, it's like, go get just the active ones. It's basically, it's a little flag. It says, are you active or not? Should I show you or should I hide you? And so you can kind of set that. These are your presets. We call these special line items. And some of these actually have special code in the background that goes beyond what a normal item can do. We're like, oh, we automatically know where you're going with this. For instance, like a discount or something to that effect, okay? There's tons of them here. Freights, fees, labors, rentals, shipping, shop supplies, sublet, supplies, trade-ins, verbiage and info, warranty, like there's a bunch of different things. Okay, the next one down, this is a whole subject in and of itself. It's in 61 where it talks about a specific unit. Most of us are not going to be dealing with this, but say for instance if I was selling tractors or modular homes or jewelry or something, a big ticket item like a serialized unit, this is where I get to name it. Hey, I sell modular homes. I sell tractors, big equipment. I sell something like, this is your little way to name that bigger category there. Okay, the next couple are basically web settings. Automatically for Adilas, as soon as you get an account, if you want to, you can automatically have a web presence, which is the precursor for our shopping cart, okay? So right now, it's already built. As soon as I say, hey, I'm a company, let's say that I sell the kitchen products or something like that, okay? And say I wanted to run a special on my blenders. Well, guess what? As soon as I make changes inside of Adilas, we do a thing called web servicing, which is basically like, shoo, send it off to another little spot. This other little server says, hey, what are my settings? Oh, I'll allow this to be shown. You can actually connect this to part of your website. Nobody needs a login, and you're able to show your features, your products, your photos, your whatever. And it's just for your little widget that you say yes or no on, okay? So it's kind of a handy little piece. That's where we're going to connect it to e-commerce, okay? You basically already are able to show and search your products. The next button is add to cart, okay? That's basically where things are going. There's a number of settings there as well. The other ones at the very bottom are more financial based. What's your fiscal year? Okay. are you a January through a December, or are you a June through, you know, whatever, depending on when you actually do your settings.